Someone shut the door. I don't want people out there to make fun of me. Another Griffin freestyle. We're talking about that hallway. So all y'all kids be. Check it. Yeah. See me running through this hallway. Hey. Clocking in, I'm in the hallway. Putting in these grades back to the hallway. On that brand new guitar in the hallway. Only no 3 chords up in the hallway.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 3 of oBawany. Today I'd like to first thank our sponsors. Our number one sponsor is Jarvis. If you need any security needs where someone did not do anything, please call Jarvis for assistance. He did not provide us a phone number, but he did pay for this advertising spot. And our second advertiser or supporter today is Chef Jasmine's Classroom.
That's great.
That's it. They will make you some really good food occasionally.
Thank you for supporting the arts.
Support the arts, everybody. So today, Arpan and I are joined by kind of the heart and soul of the SEL community at Clemente. I can say that because I don't have any data that people will question me on, but I can make claims.
There are a lot of other people involved.
There are a lot of other people involved, but I would say our guest, Jac Smith from the counseling team, is probably the most prominent face, at least in my interactions, because she'll always yell at me to be better with the kids. So, Jac, welcome on. How are you?
Thanks. Thanks for having me. I'm good. It's like a weird time of life right now, but
Show us the dog. Sorry.
Say that one more time.
Where's Joey the dog?
Joey, you want me to get him?
Yeah, get the dog.
Right. Joe! Come here, Joe. Come here. He's looking at me like, what do you need? Come here. Do you want to be on TV?
The people what they want. They want dogs.
He's thinking about it, but he's looking real skeptical right now. He doesn't really fit in the chair with me, and so he doesn't. Sometimes he'll try and then kind of fall off. And
yeah, we really appreciate how serious you're taking this with the setup at your home.
This is actually where I've been taking all my FaceTime calls, but I did turn the chair because you couldn't see me with the light in the background. It was like a dark, when it does the, what I'm talking about?
No.
Yes, I do.
Whatever. You know what I'm talking about.
So
it does look like a staged.
It looks pretty staged.
There was a kid on the last video that said me and Bawany are living at the same house.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
I now, like I'm looking at it.
That's really funny. Whoever
commented on that, shout out to you. Thank you for assuming, because you know what? I'm like looking at the backgrounds in our apartments. Patel and I do not live together. Maybe someday. I think that would be cool. And then we'll also get Mr. Pulley, who is the third South Asian teacher at Clemente, hopefully to move in with us, and maybe Miss Pagab, maybe. But like, it is really, it's a very good catch because Patel and I, we look like we are living in the same building or the same apartment, and it would be very much us to like broadcast from different rooms rather than be
actually looks like you could be in the same room, just like one over there.
Yeah, that is pretty interesting. Like he could be on one side.
Yeah.
Hey, don't let them know.
Pass a note.
Yeah. So, sorry, but like you were mentioning, how have you been? How are you holding up during this time?
Yeah, I feel like there's like kind of 2 parts to that. There's the part where I've been kind of proactive in like planning for this. So I know that I'm somebody that when I have unstructured time, I kind of sink. I have like a history of like depression and some like PTSD stuff and some other things that like all kind of kick in when I have nothing to do. And I know this about myself. So like coming into these, well, initially what we thought was 2 weeks, I laid out this whole thing and I made this big old list of things that I needed to do that were productive, and then like things that were like good quality relaxation, not just like sitting and scrolling on my phone or like
no, you don't want to be like me.
Yeah, I can't do it. I feel like shit when I do that.
No, I'm very much the same way. Like when I always need downtime, but like the gym's not open right now. Like I can't go hang out with friends. Like I literally can't do anything. So I think like one of the reasons we did make this podcast was for that reason of like, I think people just need company right now. Is like a very, very weird time. And I think people miss each other. And I'm sure the students miss each other and they miss their teachers and the teachers miss the students and the staff. So
yeah, most definitely. And like connection, I think it just reminds you how important connection is, especially connections that you take for granted, right? Like people that you work with that you see every day who you might not see outside of work a lot, but like those interactions during the day, whether they're like funny or thought provoking or supportive or whatever it may be, they're meaningful, you know? And when you don't have it, it kind of feels like, damn, you know? But yeah, so like went into it with all these things that felt good to relax, like exercise, food things, like new hobbies. I was gonna start playing the piano again, which maybe will happen, we'll see. I did watch Goodfellas.
kids at home, watch Goodfellas. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, to be honest. I don't know if everyone's old enough, but that movie is so good. What were your thoughts on Goodfellas?
Well, so I've never seen it, clearly. It was good. It's intense. Whew. Yeah, my mom, I've told people this before, my mom didn't let me watch it growing up because she didn't want me to think that that's like what Italians were. And I can understand that. But no, it was good. It's like, you know, a staple, and it was intense. And I watched it in like 3 different legs because I couldn't watch it all at once. But
I'm unable to watch movies all the way through as well at this point,
yeah,
unless
like yeah. So part of this has been good. Maya's been super productive. Her school stuff is really cool. Some of the things that they're doing. She's also been baking.
Who's Maya?
Maya, my beautiful child. My beautiful teen. She has made cream puffs a couple times since we've been out. And she and I have been trying to spend more time together and like doing cool stuff together. It's a little tough when you are just in the house, but like we've been getting kind of creative. So we've been playing some impromptu charades and Uno. No, but you can come get it. Sorry.
Hey, keep it down! Hey! Keep it down! Damn it, we're doing a show here.
Yeah. I'm on TV. No, but yeah, so there's that, and then there's also the piece where like this shit is really hard for me, and like particularly this week I've had like a lot on my mind and some things that are like heavy for me, and that's really difficult for me to sit in. So on the one end, like last week was cool, last week was all right. This week has been a lot harder for me for a couple of reasons, and so yeah, I'm trying to figure that out and trying to figure out what that looks like as someone who usually likes to be in company with other people when I'm feeling rough. Yeah, so like what does that look like in the COVID-19 era? I don't know. Yeah.
No, thank you for that. I think like, so one of the things that off the bat I kind of appreciate about you is you have a tremendous amount of empathy for people, and then having you like kind of talk about, you know, how you've been coping with the lack of socializing, right? The lack of work, like, which gives us purpose. Like I always have the kids, like I always have a back and forth with the kids, right? Of like, why are you guys at school if you, like in my first year, why are you at school if you're not going to be, you know, trying to participate? And the kids were like, for the social presences. Not a word, but I just said that, sorry. For social reasons, thank you. And I didn't understand that until probably
you got that Rona? I'm just kidding. It's nothing to joke about.
I didn't understand the social phenomenon that high school is until like middle of second year. And like basing off of what you're saying and like how empathetic you are, have you been like dealing with this idea of being away from the workplace and also like what you think our kids might be going through during this period?
Yeah. It's difficult. It's tough being away from work, tough being away from kids, particularly when it feels difficult to reach them. Yeah. it's hard. Like there are kids that I've reached out to that I haven't heard back from, who I kind of worry about, because I know that, you know, as much as this is hard for us, like we are adults, hopefully most of us with like fairly well developed coping mechanisms and like a little bit of self-awareness. And we also, most of us probably live in a living environment where we have some control over what our life looks like from day to day, right? Whereas like I know we have kids who are in living situations that are less than ideal, can be really toxic, could potentially be like abusive or just non-supportive or whatever it may be. And that's hard because our kids, you know, they're teenagers, and typically teenagers don't have kind of the same level of self-awareness or coping. And even if you do, if you're in something that is, what's the word I'm looking for? Hard. I don't know. That's not the word I was going for, but yeah, that's hard. And especially to like not get a break. That worries me. And you know, we also have a lot of kids that are probably really happy to just be home with their families right now and like enjoying that company and maybe taking opportunities to like reconnect or build some bonds or whatever it may be. And so my hope is that that is most of our kids' experiences. But I also know that we do have kids that are probably having a really difficult time with this, particularly kids that struggle with anxiety. And like a lot of times the unknown can produce a lot of anxiety for people. And so right now we're sitting in this space of like not knowing how long this is going to last, not knowing what's going on with school, kids not knowing what's going on with their grades, you know, people not, seniors not knowing if they're going to like see each other again, you know, and that can be really overwhelming for people. And yeah, so it's tough to like not be able to support kids, especially when we're in the middle of this thing where like I know people need support, you know. Yeah, so that's hard.
I appreciate that, Jack. It is incredibly hard. I know Patel and I have talked about like, I think like Patel said something really that caught my heart yesterday, where he's like, yeah, you know, like the first week was fine because like you needed a week off, right? Like that like kind of grind. And now he's like, I kind of want to get back at some point.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know, big facts. You know, not to worry anybody, but like we don't know. We genuinely don't know how long this is going to take.
Write it out.
Yeah.
It's I don't know if like, I think a lot about something that's like made me sad was like, is that the last time I taught the juniors? Is that the last time I'll see the seniors? Like, I have no idea whatsoever. And those are the two groups that I've taught over, since I've been a teacher, basically.
Yeah.
I'm like very much worrying of like, I don't want to like, I also feel like it's going to be weird going back. And I kind of have like that anxiety of like, I don't want to go back to work, but I do miss that like part of seeing them, and it's always nice to like say goodbye, and I very much worry if there's no like finality to it. That's like
yes. Well, and like the lack of closure is really hard.
Exactly. That's perfect.
You know, typically. And so especially, you know, I know that a lot of our kids have had things end abruptly without being able to make meaning of it, you know, and that's hard for everybody. I know that's hard for our kids. Yeah, so Patel, I think that's like super valid, you know.
How'd you like, and you're really like extremely helpful and knowledgeable on a lot of the inner workings of like how we navigate like trauma, how we navigate spaces of like extreme anxiety. If you could, Jack, what's some advice that you could potentially give educators in this moment and also students? Like, I know you've gone over a few things about what you were doing, but like, you know, Patel just mentioned something that is deeply important.
What is wrong with you? It's called oBawany.
Peso just mentioned a few minutes ago, like the stark realities, right? Like someone like me in this situation, I haven't thought about it. I've genuinely been clinging to day by day. But there are some deeper realities, like, you know, Peso mentioned, like maybe this was the last time I saw my seniors in a classroom setting, which is incredibly hard to like even consider right now.
Yeah.
Potentially it's the last time some of our colleagues might be in the same space together, right? Like some of us might be moving on, some of us might not be back next year. And that's something really hard to fully comprehend. So what if you could, what are some things that you could maybe tell us as educators and those of us who are on as students about how to deal with such a time? Like,
I mean,
in terms of, feelings. Sorry.
No, you're good. I think one of the things that's important is recognizing what's within your control and what's not, right? And in every situation, there are going to be some things that are out of our control. Right now, it happens to feel like a lot, but there are still things that we can control among ourselves or within ourselves or whatever it may be. And even like legit drawing that out. So like sometimes with kids and for myself, like I'll legitimately draw circles and like there's one in the middle and this is what I can control. And then there's one on the outside, and these are all the things that are happening that I have no control over. Maya's playing the recorder in the other room, and I have ADD. It is super distracting. So hang on 1 second. Hey, Maya. How do I mute myself?
Jack thinks putting a hand on the camera works.
Look at old.
That is hilarious. Hang on, Maya.
All right, hold on.
What? You can just stop the video. Please make sure this makes it on the final cut, Peso.
Oh yeah, this is gonna be all on.
Man, Jack is a boomer.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Look at this, kids.
This is what we have to deal with every day when we tell people like about technology. Also, you kids ain't that great either.
Yeah,
Mr. oBawany, how I make a copy of this document? You know how to make a copy. All right, sorry.
Still figuring some things out, all right?
No, you're great. You're a hero. We're just making fun of the kids. Listen, if there was a choice between backing the kids or Miss Smith, I'm sorry, kids. I'm backing Miss Smith all the time.
I got you back, Davion.
Yeah, Patel's your hero. I am not the working class champion.
We'll be free together.
Sorry, Jack, you were saying?
ADD, I don't remember. What were we talking about?
Oh, yeah. No, it's totally fine. You were talking about, first you were talking about locus of control.
Yes. So legitimately drawing them out and making a visual of some kind, whether it's like doodles and like visual art or like collages even, or headlines of the news, or like however you want to do it. I write, so like mine would just be words or like sentences or even like a paragraph in a circle or whatever it might be. But like getting it on there on something visually and then literally saying to yourself, like, I need to let go of all of this extra peripheral stuff because there's legit nothing I can do about it. And then really focusing your energy or your thoughts or whatever on that stuff that's in the middle. Hi.
Is that a Maya sighting?
You guys, yeah, it is.
Hey.
Literally, my brain goes blank. We could talk about ADD too if we need to.
Yeah,
we can and then a stimulus enters, and then I'm like, what? Deer in the headlights. Circles of control.
Circles of control, and then finding a way to like understand what you can and what you can't manage.
Yeah, and then focusing and like continuing to draw your energy back to that middle circle, the things that you can control. And that might even be like, we can't control what the end of the year looks like, but we could probably do something for our seniors in the summer, you know?
Yeah.
Or like, and sometimes creativity is really born out of that middle circle because you're sometimes trying to find like a link between the uncontrollable and then like the things that you have potential to do something with. And you can get creative and find some things that like might be kind of cool. So yeah, I mean, that's one thing. Just like there are tons of things about like mindfulness and managing anxiety and like trying to refocus yourself in the present. If you Google mindfulness, you'll get a ton of stuff. That's really helpful for some people. I don't actually love mindfulness personally, but lots of people like swear to death by it.
Yeah, I swear by it. So
yeah.
Can I ask you why?
Say it again.
I also have no understanding of SEL. like my SEL was like, yo, Davion, what's up, my boy?
But you're building relationships, right? And like that's really important.
I know I'm doing something right, but it's never backed by any research or theory.
But making a person feel important and like feel seen and feel like when they come into your classroom, you're going to be excited to see them. Like that's huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, what do you suggest? And then I've got like two questions for you. But number one, what do you suggest we do? Much of the SEL that Patel and I focus on is that face-to-face communication. How can we as educators, maintain those relationships right now?
Yeah. I mean, if face-to-face communication is important to you, like put your face places, I know you have Google Classrooms. We have our Clemente social media, like Foreman and I own it. So like, we're happy to share content or whatever. And like I'm not super techie. So like, I don't know what other kinds of things we can do, but I don't know. I honestly think it would be really cool for some of us to get together and just like brainstorm some stuff. Cause I think, like I said, like this is an opportunity for us to potentially get super creative. And I don't think that I have all the answers to that, but I do think that collectively we could probably come up with some really cool stuff. I mean, what you guys are doing right now is a really great example.
This is really to, like when I had an idea, I was just like talking about why. It's so funny how we came up with this podcast. He just shot me a text out of the blue, and then he was like, "Hey, want to do a talk show?" And I was like, "Sure." And then we didn't talk for like 3 hours, and he's like, "Right?" And I'm like, "Sure." And then we got on Zoom, and then he's like, "So what do we want to do?" And I was like, "We'll just talk and see what happens." And we literally invited on, like, we're like, well, let's just get Griffin, and we'll go from there. Yeah. And literally we're here, but I think it came from, the idea I had and oBawany had was like, we think about our favorite podcast just to keep something to keep people company is nice. Like I miss the voices I would hear at school and like the energy that would be involved in that building.
That's so true. And Patel, you're touching on another really important SEL component is like sensory stuff, right? So like hearing people's voices, that's something that I didn't even think about. But that's real, and that can create such like comfort for people. I could go on a whole tangent about that, but like anything that plays into the five senses can be really grounding for people. And so I think that, I love what you guys are doing. I think it's really smart, kind of cool and fun and whatever.
So, and appreciate your insights. Kind of to pivot a little bit, we know that, and many of us know as your colleagues and also students at Clemente, that you're extremely proud of your Italian heritage. When you have the opportunity, you let anyone and everybody know. I think you were deeply upset when the ordinance passed to potentially name Columbus Day into Indigenous Peoples Day, but that's a discussion for another day. Beyond your like definitive pride in being Italian and supporting someone like Nick Sposato, I'd like to ask you about your time at Simpson. I think, the conversations we've had about the school you were at before Clemente, like it really molded you in a way. And there's a lot of experiences that have made you who you are, which I hopefully want to get to a little bit later and try to talk to students about, again, like how life works, because I think, again, your story is incredibly fascinating and like really wonderful. But can you talk to me about Simpson and how that kind of the experience at Simpson brought you to who you are at Clemente right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I love talking about my experiences at Simpson. Simpson was like one of my favorite, not only teaching experiences, but also like.
That's Miss Old School that she worked at.
Not the TV show.
Yes. Also, real quick, before we get into any of this, I just need the world to know that Mr. oBawany is a liar. And while I am, in fact, Italian.
Patel, mute this.
None of the other
cut this out.
Sentiments are true. So, anyways, Simpson. Man. So Simpson so before I taught at Simpson, I actually taught at a charter school for a couple of years. That was all boys. And hours were 8 to 5. It was super intense. I was single parenting a 3-year-old at the time. She was in daycare from like 7 a.m. till 6 p.m. every day. And then, people who have taught know that your first 2 years of teaching are insane. So I would come home, I was teaching maybe 3 different courses. all 90 minutes. So like really long periods to plan for. And I was super passionate about it. So I would come home and grade papers and plan lessons and like do all of those things for hours. And I felt like I really loved what I was like learning and doing in the classroom and like being with kids and teaching and, you know, all of that stuff. But I was like really dysfunctional in pretty much every other area of life. Like there were friendships that were damaged because of all the time that I was spending working. There were like pieces of myself that I was probably setting to the side. I remember at one point not noticing that the seasons had changed, like legit missing all of fall one year and being like, I don't even remember the leaves changing colors. And like, that's how in it I was, you know? And so, yeah, so I realized that that wasn't healthy. So I started looking for some other jobs, and found Simpson on the school's website and was like Googling schools. And yeah, so I found their website and was like, oh my gosh, this sounds amazing. And part of it was because I was a young mom myself. I was born when I was 20. So I was a sophomore in college when I got pregnant. And so, you know, not quite the same as being a teen parent. There are a lot of additional obstacles, you know, for my teen moms. Simpson is a school for teen moms. I guess I should say that also. I don't think we said that. Yeah, so I saw that and I was like, oh man, this would be like right up my alley. So I reached out and met the principal and assistant principal at the time. And they were super, super dedicated to creating this like really amazing space for young women in the city of Chicago. And like really dedicated to pouring into our kids and making them feel loved and supported and also academically prepared for whatever they choose to do with their life, but like really with a dedicated mission of letting them know that they can still go to college, they can still like accomplish all of the things that they want to accomplish, and we need to prepare them for that. So yeah, so I met them and like kind of fell in love. I went through like a really intensive interview process. I think I had 3 different interviews. There were classroom lessons. There was like a full day where I was like collaborating with other teachers and building curriculum and like all kinds of things as an interview. It was really intense. But it was also kind of cool because I got to meet some people and like get a feel for how things were. Yeah. And so I remember my first day in my classroom. It was like, Simpson is an old building. We had desks from like the 70s. My desk was like an old wooden desk that was kind of falling apart. But it was very like, I don't know, like cozy. I wish I could show you a picture right now.
I kind of know.
Say that again.
I feel like I know what you mean. Like it's not my voice crack. Oh God.
No, it sounds great. Keep it up.
You're saying it's like it's not the most perfect environment, but it's like cozy in the sense of like it felt like very intimate and small, like a small space. Like the hot dog.
Like what?
Like the hot dog room.
Like the hot dog room, sure.
How many students did you have at Simpson?
So at the time there were about, I'm gonna say 180, maybe 150, something like that. So every class.
About the hot dog room. You always want to change the subject. Go ahead.
I mean, Patel, did you have more that you wanted to say about your
hot dog? No. Go ahead. It's your show.
Oh, okay. Anyways, I remember just feeling this sense of like, this is where I'm supposed to be. And there are so many stories I could tell, but I was teaching English, and I had always kind of thought maybe I would go into counseling, thought maybe special ed. For a minute, actually started a principal prep program, and then pretty quickly was like, I don't think this is like the lifestyle that I want. And yeah, but teaching English and teaching in a like homogeneous population to an extent, because we all have this like parenting thing in common, really enabled me to use literature to like speak to some of the emotional things that like my kids were going through. And so I loved teaching. We had amazing conversations in class, just like getting my kids to recognize that literature is about people's experiences, right? And like often we'll speak to humanity and like what it feels like to be a human and like go through all of the things that we go through, and like the depth of our experiences, and to be able to like read stuff and have kids say like, I know how that feels. And like that's oftentimes the angle that I would take when we were reading, is like connecting to feelings or connecting to things that feel familiar to you. And of course there's like a ton of other academic stuff that was involved, but like that was often my entry point into things with kids. And also making it really intentional that we were reading things that reflected some of the actual experiences that they've gone through in their lives, and then giving them opportunity to like take agency and speaking about their own circumstances, themselves, really, just like giving them language to do that. And I think sometimes reading other people's vulnerabilities lets you realize like, oh, I could talk about that too, right? Or like I can share this too. Or if this person went through this, then like it's okay that I have also, experienced the same thing. And yeah, so like literature was super, super, super powerful in building connection, and honestly in building community with like among my students. If you think about, how many times kids are like, I need to get out of this class because I don't get along with so-and-so, or like me and her, got into a fight last year and I don't ever want to see her again, like that kind of stuff. But at Simpson, there's only one class. So like you can't transfer into the other teachers. Like we need to make this work. And so the power of people being able
You're
to
the opposite of me. I know oBawany will disagree with this, but he's the same. I'm like, hey, take that fight. I don't care if you guys are fighting. Take that in the hallway. Just not in here today. And then someone's like, why are all the kids fighting? I'm like, hey, man, just not in my room right now. No, truly, just not in my room. Like, I'm tired today. Like, I don't care if you guys don't like each other. Take that in the hallway. Don't bring that in here.
So you're ensuring that your classroom is a place where people feel safe, at least.
Yeah, it's like a zone of like, it's a safe place for people. It's a refugee center, so it's maybe.
Nice. Yeah.
The hot dog room is home to many.
Clearly. But yeah, so that was really cool. And then that kind of, like I said, I started in a principal prep path and then was like, no, I think I'm gonna go to counseling. So I like pivoted, finished grad school while I was at Simpson. And then, yeah, at that point, like our, enrollment all over the city in neighborhood schools and specialized schools like Simpson has been dwindling for so many reasons. But Simpson's population went from, like I said, it was like 150 or 180. I can't remember my first year there, which was 2011. By the time I left, Alexa, stop. By the time I left in 2000, when did I leave? 17? 18?
I want to say 18.
Something like that.
You came back.
2018.
2018. Okay. I think we had like 50 kids. And yeah, like our staff had changed a lot, just like dynamics were so different. And so it was kind of a perfect opportunity for me to transition into something else. Yeah. And then came Clemente. So I think there are so many other things I could say about Simpson. I don't know, like if there are things you want to know. I could talk about it legit forever. So I'm going to pause it here, but let me know if you want to know more, because we could keep going.
Absolutely. I think my follow-up to that, I think, so if I'm gonna try to stay off of my structured questions, kind of again thematically. As you guys know, I prepare every evening, unlike Patel.
Just show up here.
He just shows up. I think like one question I really want to get to the heart of, because I think you're a phenomenal person for the kids to like come to and speak to and work with. Like, how do you love these kids like you do? Because Patel did make a very interesting point where I could absolutely see you in a situation like you described in Simpson. Meanwhile, Patel and I would be like, guys, just go outside.
Not
just
over here. Take that. Whatever.
Just not here. Not today.
I don't care which teacher's
Yep.
room. Just not here.
Yep.
Not today.
Yep.
Here. Like I gotta get through today.
Yeah, as many people have understood this year amongst my colleagues, students will come to me with difficult situations like, man, Mr. oBawany, my girlfriend broke up with me. And I'll be like, I don't care, man. Like, why do I care? And I always sit back after that interaction and be like, Jac Smith would have never done that. Meanwhile, Patel's on the other side saying like, good, come to the dark
Well, let
side.
me tell you some things though, because as a teacher, I was that way. And honestly, I think that a lot of it kind of reflected where I was emotionally. So like I had capacity to facilitate these like really deep conversations in class. But when it came to one-on-one with kids, part of it was that I was super burnt out. Part of it was that I was sort of in my own like emotionally cold phase of life, which I've learned now is like a coping mechanism for deflecting trauma and like all kinds of other things. So that might be something for you guys to think about if you're finding yourself in that space. Yeah, there were definitely times as a teacher that a kid would come to me with like a heartbreaking story, and I'd be like, okay, so what are we gonna do? Like, are you gonna sit in it, or are we gonna make it work? And that was kind of my like teacher thing, which was sort of not the most compassionate, but also in some ways like I think communicated that like this doesn't have to define you, like it doesn't have to break you, it doesn't have to be the reason why you don't graduate, it doesn't have to hold you back from doing whatever it is that you want to accomplish. Yeah, so it was like kind of no nonsense, but that's part of why I wanted to be a counselor, was so that like I could make space to like actually sit in those places with kids when like kids would come tell me these things that were like mind-blowing and intense and really heartbreaking, and I would just be like, okay, and then I'd be like, dang, Jac, like, is that really how you're gonna respond to that? But yeah, anyways, so loving kids is I think what you were asking about initially. And I think, the biggest piece, and this is a thing that I think you guys do really well, I think a lot of people in the building do this really well, is just getting to know our kids and like seeing our kids, this is gonna sound like duh, but seeing our kids as people, seeing our kids as other people's children, seeing our kids as like humans who are just trying to figure shit out, who are absolutely gonna make mistakes and sometimes like do stupid things, but like so did we probably, and just going back to what I was saying about teaching English and just like recognizing people's humanity, and that yeah, that's all it is, right? Like we're all just people trying to figure our shit out. And so I think that is what enables me to I don't know, see my kids the way that I do. I also think there's something about being a counselor and not a teacher, where like I'm not a disciplinarian. I'm not worrying about like classroom management. I don't have to, like, there are very, like, a lot of those things are kind of gone, right? So I get to just like love on kids, where like as a teacher, it was a little bit of both. Like, I love you, but I also need you to sit down and do your work, right? Or like, thank you for sharing that with me, but like not now, go over there.
That's something I do appreciate about you is I feel like every time I talk about teaching with you, it's not ever being judged because you've had that experience before. I don't know, like I think like I hate when I hear teachers say like security isn't doing anything, or I hate when security is like teachers aren't doing anything, and it's a frustrating experience because it's like I've even heard like counselors or staff or whatever talk about that teacher doesn't know what they're doing. And it's very frustrating for people not to understand these are very different roles. There's people in our building that I think they think they're teachers because they're at school, but they're not. And I don't mean that as an insult. I mean that as in you just don't hold the same responsibility in the same way I don't hold your job responsibilities. And I think that's something I appreciate about you, is that you have that insight into both worlds, and that's why there is very little judgment I sense from you.
Yeah, I hope it comes off that way, right? And like my role is sometimes weird for me because like there are times where I miss the classroom. There are times where I miss supporting teachers. So like part of my role at Simpson, I had a couple of different student teachers throughout the years, and like I was in like a teacher support role in a couple of different ways. And so sometimes I like at Clemente, I try to stay in my lane, but sometimes I'm like, man, I really wish that I could just like work with this teacher, right? And part of it is like just figuring out your own sort of philosophy on your classroom, right? And like some people think like, when we're talking about misbehavior, some people are like, that has no place in the classroom. That's a security thing, or that's like a dean thing, or whatever. Simpson, we didn't have a dean. We
Let
didn't
the
really
hallways determine what's going to happen. Let the hallways judge.
Right. And so like at Simpson, it was like, whatever's happening in my classroom today, I need to make it work. So if two kids want to fight, like I have to figure out a way to get us all on the same page so that we can still have class. Or like if one kid's mom just died and she's an emotional mess, I have to figure out how to give her space, you know, in the classroom so that we can still make this work. Like whatever it was. And there are a lot of, like, I literally have things like flying through my mind right now of some of the crazy things that happened, but like I had to deal with it. There was no place to send a kid because we were super short staffed. And so I think that also really built my capacity to just like love on kids, because I can't put you out of the classroom. I can't send you, sometimes I could send you to the counselor, but oftentimes our counselor was pulled doing a million things. So like I come from a philosophy of like, I want you in my classroom, even if you're a hot ass mess right now. We need to find a way for you to stay here. So like, let's figure out what you need. And like not taking things personally, I think is another thing. Like I've had kids cuss me out up and down, and I'll be like, okay, sorry you feel that way today. Hi, you know, because I know that they're not coming into that. It's not about me. It's about like wherever they are in their space in the moment. And that's fine. Like, I'm not offended. I'm not going to take it personally. I want you in my classroom, you know? And yeah, so I think having to just make things work, that's also just part of who I am. It's like making shit work, you know? You do what you got to do. So.
That makes it work.
Patel makes it work. So before I put a pause on some of the more, relational and deeper questions, one question I have to ask you, and you've alluded to this a lot. You have a daughter. You raised your daughter while you had Maya, your daughter, when you were 20, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're 20. Now she's about to go to high school, potentially St. Ignatius, which I know you're really big on.
Not going to
just because you don't believe in Clemente and you don't believe in other areas of Chicago public schools and public schools in general. But can you, like, one thing I've really appreciated this year, I have a lot of students we do have students who have children. We do have students who have deep connections to family members who had children early in life, including parents, right? Like I'm starting to meet parents of my students who are my age, and I'm like, this is crazy. And wonderful. But like one thing I appreciated, I sent a student to you last year who was raising a child, and she said that, it was really inspiring to talk to you. How does that experience of like not necessarily being a teen mom, but like having Maya at a really early part in your life, and now like also being someone who is committed to like giving so much to students while also somehow finding a way to be like absolutely involved in your own daughter's life? Like how does the entirety of those experiences kind of have you at the position you're at right now as a person, as someone who sees a ton of humanity in kids?
So I'm going to talk about one thing first, and then I'm going to come back to kind of the core of your question.
Sure.
I think as I've gotten older and like a little farther removed from like that initial experience and parenting someone who's about to be a high school student herself, I've actually empathized a lot more with parents. And I get kind of defensive when people talk about parents being like uninvolved or not having capacity or other things, because you're right. A lot of our kids' parents were young parents themselves, and having a kid unexpectedly or in a situation where like you're not entirely stable in your own self or life or whatever yet is incredibly difficult. And so, versus like planning to have a child and having a plan to raise your child and talking about like how you're going to parent that child and like laying out all that stuff, like when you've never done that, you're just jumping in and trying to figure it out. And literally, I remember the first couple of years of Maya's life, my goal was that she didn't die. Like that was the hope. Like if I can keep this living thing alive, then like I'm good. Because I had no idea how to take care of a child. Like I never babysat. I did actually once, and I dropped the baby. What about the ankle? Yep. So that I was also like the person that no one thought, like people thought would never have kids or like would maybe have them like really late in life. But like not the one that was like, oh yeah, she's gonna be a mom, you know.
Can you talk about something you said for a second?
Yeah, is it dropping the baby by the ankle?
No.
Okay, good.
I think enough's been said about that part. I think you said like parent blaming. I think that's one of my least favorite things for sure. I will blame parents if they're like calling and they're like, my son's not this way. That's what I don't mess with because I don't care. But the majority of parents I met at Clemente are pretty amazing.
Yeah,
but I also don't know if that's like my singular experience, but I don't think people realize how racist it is to blame parents, first of all, like saying these people don't raise their kids. Like I don't think people have ever seen the loaded language behind that. I think about my own parents, like they didn't even understand how school worked. So I've been very open with my kids and the staff about this. Like I just misbehaved all the time because I had no one supervising me essentially. And it wasn't that my parents thought they were supervising me, but they also didn't speak English well and they're not home often. And I had fireworks and were happening. But I don't think people understand how hard it is to raise a kid and to raise a kid in the situations a lot of our parents are raising their kids in. It's like difficult, and I think I've read this so many times. It's like it's super racist to blame parents for not being involved in the ways we are. It's not considering systems like oBawany talks about, like how are systems impacting why people are having trouble raising children.
Absolutely. Well, and even the thing of like, my kid isn't this way, parents have had to advocate for their kids historically throughout the education system, right? And like teachers labeling them or assuming that they are a certain way for whatever reason, right? But a lot of it is racial biases. And so parents are used to having to defend their kid and to say like, this isn't my kid. This isn't how they are for me. This isn't how I know them to be. And I think that's real. I think that is tough when like you're saying something in class and the parent is like, no, my kid would never do that. And you're like, right. But yeah, I think that's just parents protecting their kids, and it's hard to like find a way to work through that. But you know, I believe that that's where a lot of parents are coming from, and it's unfortunate that they have been in positions where like they are sometimes the only advocate for their kid, and I like hate that our schooling system is set up that way. And yeah, and sometimes too, like your kid changes and you don't know it. Like there are times that Maya's a really good kid, but there are times that things have happened and I'm like, what? You know, and like that's not how I know Maya. So in my head, I'm like, that could not have happened. Like she never would have
know the real Maya.
Oh, Teresa Miller is calling me. Sorry, decline, Teresa, I'll call you back. Oh, am I gone? No. Okay, never mind.
You're still here.
I'm real tech savvy. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I don't remember where we left off.
How has Maya shaped how you teach your counsel and do your job?
Yeah. Okay.
I want to jump in quickly and clarify that I'm a huge fan of Maya. There's some great stories that if Miss Smith is willing to, she'll share. I'm a huge fan. I was really disappointed that Maya said a few days ago that she doesn't find it cool that I have Disney Plus.
She doesn't.
Still kind of
really unamused. She was like, Disney?
Yeah, I'm still kind of hurting. But I just wanted to throw that in. Maya, if you're watching, I'm a fan. Please don't take out your anger that you have at your mom on me. I'm a fan. Thank you. I just wanted to say that.
Yep. I'm still hoping that she'll watch a Disney movie with me, but we'll see.
We're rooting for you.
Thank you. Appreciate you. But yeah, so I wanted to speak to that parent part for a second, because I feel like that's kind of more of what I almost relate to now. But when I was fresh out of college, teaching my first teaching job initially, and then moving into Simpson, when I started teaching, I was honestly still kind of in the belly of some of the trauma, and like I'm not going to speak to the details of it, but it was like fresh in some trauma, because experiences are different, but emotions tend to connect people. So like, even if you haven't been through the same thing, you can say like, I've felt that way. And like, I've seen this happen from like student to student or person to person or whatever. And so I think that is kind of what has enabled me to be super empathetic sometimes, and not necessarily understanding all the complexities of what our kids have been through, because a lot of it is like much bigger and much more complex than some of the things that I've been through. But I can remember what it feels like to be coming out of, you know, even going to college, like having to go to a class, like fight or flight, I'm in adrenaline mode, protecting myself, to like, now I'm sitting in class and I'm doing my work, right? And yeah, so like that was super fresh for me when I first started teaching. And so it was perspective in recognizing the ways that like sometimes our kids are triggered. And sometimes kids will like lash out or explode or like do things where you're like, where did that come from? You know? And a lot of times it is because they're living in fight or flight mode every day. And so, yeah, so I think, again, my first couple years, I was really kind of in tune with some of that stuff. And then as time has progressed, that feels like a really long time. It was, I mean, it was like 13 years ago at this point, which is crazy. So yeah, so I've gotten a little bit more like emotionally out of touch with some of that stuff, but it definitely kind of paved the way for like the empathy, the way that I saw trauma in the classroom as a teacher initially. Yeah.
Shifting a little bit, do you mind if we ask you some rapid fire questions?
Sure, go for it.
All right, number one, what's a message you have for Javari Jones, a student that you love and I despise?
Javari Jones, you better be on your online classroom ASAP. Third period.
Your work, Javari. Do your work. Come to my class. I see you in the hallway, man.
Yeah.
Sorry for yelling.
That's true. I feel the same way. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Funniest moment at Clemente.
Funniest moment at Clemente. There have been many times that I've been in tears laughing.
You once slapped me in the counseling suite.
I've never slapped you. I've never.
I have proof. I was slapped, everybody. Like my colleague slapped me, and then she tried to do a massive cover up.
Ask Hannah Ellis what really happened.
Oh, Hannah Ellis was like, "You slapped him, and he deserved it," and I was like, "Wow." So, yeah.
I don't know. I can't answer that question right now. I have to think about it, but I'll send you a video clip of me answering the question later.
Not a problem. Why are you and the counseling team such a clique?
We're great. So we see each other all the time. Imagine if you shared a classroom with 3 other people, and like you were with each other all day, you know? We're not cliquey, we're cool, we're inclusive. We love everybody. Welcome to 623. Usually when people walk into 623, I applaud for them, because I like people to feel special, you know? But yeah, we're pretty close. We're a tight-knit crew.
Have you ever been cornered in the office by Miss Miller because she's a close talker?
I'm gonna say no.
Can't relate.
Probably.
Yesterday we found a video of Mr. Foreman, and I'm gonna ask Arpan to download it and put it in here.
It can be scary. Everything about your stomach you once thought anew. This is the story when everything blew. Dating back to 1779, this disease makes the stomach not so fine. From a civil to the world's first war, Big D.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on his performance? What would you?
So I've actually seen this performed live.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, with like the video projected in the background. The live version is actually much better than the version in the song. I think they've been practicing for about 10 years. But when I first saw this, let's rewind for a little bit. So as a counseling team, the beginning of the year, last year, Foreman and I were new. You guys know, like I have a big personality. I'm real animated, kind of goofy. Miss Miller also has like a big personality, but in a different kind of a way. And Foreman was always really quiet. And so yeah, so like that was my initial experience of Foreman, was that he was like real quiet, pretty chill. And then like the real Foreman was evolving. And so this dysentery music video was like, initially I was like, what? Yeah. So at this point I've seen it many times. Yeah, that's funny.
Next question. This year, what was your most memorable interaction?
I'm not good at most.
Can you think of one that's coming off the top of your head?
I'm going to videotape myself and send it in later.
Okay, no problem. If there was one colleague you could fight, who would that colleague be?
Oh, Mr. oBawany, because he lies all the time.
That's not true.
The hands I would take to the guy Hoover.
Yeah, well, you know, these are hypothetical questions, and just a reminder, everybody, Miss Smith has slapped me in the counseling office once.
I do hate Hoover.
Happened. You would do Hoover? oBawany, who would you do?
Nobody. I love everyone.
That's a lie.
I love everybody. If I'm going to fight anybody, it's going to be someone like Javari Jones. Javari Jones, meet me outside once his quarantine's over.
Hey, Hoover, you coward. You can't keep hiding.
Patel had a chance to fight Hoover yesterday. He didn't, so that's all I got to say about that.
I watched
COVID-19 is the least of your worries, my friend.
Why are you sending your daughter to St. Ignatius?
I'm not sending my daughter to St. Ignatius, but she does find out what public school she got into today. 5
Fingers
p.m.
crossed.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. You once came up to me and did like an Aladdin voice. Why did you think that was okay?
Actually, I didn't do an Aladdin voice, but I did respond with an Aladdin reference.
Mm-hmm. 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 And the optics didn't.
No, actually, no, that's a lie. I didn't. I caught myself, but then I told you what I was gonna say, and then I didn't say it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you've been known.
What?
You've been known to snort laugh a million times.
That happens sometimes.
That happens sometimes. How do you feel about that?
I feel like it's a thing of aging, which makes me a little uncomfortable. I feel like there's like something in my esophagus maybe that gets a little bit complicated. Has nothing to do with coronavirus. It's been happening for years.
What's some advice you would give our seniors right now?
In the current climate, or just as seniors going off into the world?
How about both?
Oh man, in the current climate, I would say connect with each other and don't let being away from school be a limitation on the way that you guys are like bonded. So do Zoom calls, get creative, have a FaceTime call with a whole bunch of people on it. I know kids these days use that house party app or whatever it's called. Use that. But I would encourage you guys to stay connected with each other and reach out to us. We're here for you. We love you. We support you. You can email us. You can post on the Google chat for the post-secondary thing, even if it's not post-secondary stuff. Just reach out, especially if you're feeling isolated. Going off into the world, I guess my thing is just for you to know that you have so much ability to do anything you want to do. And I like 100% truly believe that if you really want something and you put yourself into it, you will be just fine. You just have to commit to it and tell yourself that you're going to do it no matter what, because life is going to continue to throw all kinds of shit in your way. And you just need to know that that's going to happen and that you're going to be fine. You're going to deal with it. And keep it moving. Because if you're committed to something, like, you will find a way to make it work, and you have everything in you that you need to do that. And if you need help figuring out what that is, your lovely counselors are here for you.
Yeah. Can you throw in a quick plug about yesterday you tried to do a hangout for college and career? Can you, would you like to encourage students to, please partake?
Yeah, we have a chat. I don't really know how this works because I've never used it before, but every senior is added to this chat in Google Chats, which is apparently a thing. Shatara Pruitt, shout out to you. Shatara messaged me a couple days ago. Yeah. Yeah. So I was happy for that, but nobody else did. So yes, I would encourage kids to utilize that, or email. Either way is fine. But
Yeah.
get
I hope
connected.
you're listening, Victor Hernandez, you coward.
Yeah, me too. What'd you say?
I was telling Victor to tell Desiree what's up.
Oh.
Nice. We know you're watching this, Victor. You don't while you're twitching or whatever you do with video games. So Jack, before we do this last activity, which is called Big Love, before we do that, I kind of want to ask you this really important question. And I'm really upset that you never thanked me for this, but you once almost took on Mr. Patel to your caseload for socio-emotional needs for therapy, which, I stood there during the conversation. I was like, oh, this is not a good idea. And I did have to reach out to you with my utmost face of seriousness and what have you. Can you reflect on that moment for a bit?
Yeah.
What were you thinking?
I need help.
Patel needs help. And so, no, so in all seriousness, I actually really do believe that when we have capacity, it's important for us to also support our teacher colleagues, and that is not in like ongoing therapeutic services. But if you need to come into the office to vent, or if you need help like actually finding a therapist, which I think is helpful for everybody.
I want to talk to you.
Everybody.
I know.
You could talk to, I guarantee you there's some really great therapists out there just for you.
No. I have to drive. What if I'm at work? I can just come by.
Erie Health, right across the street.
Still across the street. I don't know those people.
But no, I actually really do believe in supporting people or help connecting people with therapeutic resources, because I think that a lot of times there are like barriers, even if it's just a simple, like Patel's kind of joking, but also like that is real, Mm-hmm. There are a lot of reasons why people like avoid going to therapy. And so everyone could use it, honestly, especially Patel.
Agreed. So we're going to do the final segment, which is Big Love.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you 3 people that I'd like you to give a shout out to or some love to. Who is someone who had a profound influence as an educator in your life that you want to give a shout out to?
Man, there are 2 people that immediately come to mind. One of them is Miss Henry. She's a former principal at Simpson. Miss Henry she's alive, but I don't work with her anymore. So she was probably the first person that I really learned how to be a teacher from her. So huge shout out to her. She was awesome at like developing relationships with kids and getting into like the humanity of teaching, but also like making sure that your shit was tight. And so, she taught me like how to structure my lessons and how to, all the things. She was great, hugely instrumental. The other one, I would say all of my colleagues at Simpson and Clemente, like all of these people have shaped us in so many ways, but huge shout out to my old co-teacher, Gina Laracco. We co-taught together for years. We had like an awesome time. Honestly, like we had so much fun teaching, and just like really cool dynamics between the 2 of us. I could say, sorry, there's a person in the hallway. Hey, Joe, come here.
Get to class, Joey.
Yeah, right.
Shout out to Gina. Gina, you almost gave your sweater, which had a ton of cat hair, to Jack, and you almost ended Jack. Miss Smith is deathly allergic to cats. She says, I don't buy that at all. But she says that. Okay, so big love with the colleague. Would you be willing to, and I know you love all of our students, but who's one student you want to give a special shout out to right now for whatever reason?
I'm gonna go Alex Perez. Perez, shout out to you for joining the softball team. My heart hurts that the season is not happening right now. But I'm super, super proud of you for doing it, for like getting out there and trying something new and doing something that you enjoy and like getting out of your comfort zone. That made me really excited, and I was so excited to come to your game. Maybe there will still be one someday. but just super proud of you for that. And
We're
I am
always there for
so
her.
excited to see what you do with your life.
Alex is going to do great things.
Yeah. I think
We love you, Alex. All three of us. We love you. And hopefully you get a chance to see this because you deserve all the love. You're great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Javari Jones, however, my boy.
I'm thinking about Nakaira Donaldson right now.
Mhm.
Another.
Yeah, feel free. Tell us about what you want to give a shout out to or what you're thinking about when it comes to
I'm
Nakaira.
excited for you. I'm excited for all these. I'm excited for everybody. But Nakaira, I know you are trying to figure out where you want to go next year. And I imagine that if we were in school, you would be sitting in my office and you would be telling me all the things that you like about all these different schools. And I would ask you probably to make like a pros and cons list and talk to your mom and go to school out of state.
Yeah. The best thing that happened to me this year was that Nakaira got transferred my first period and I only see her for about 20 minutes a day. Nakaira is very, like I'm a deeply, on most days I can be a deeply caring person and Nakaira is just so dry. Like, I'll be like, Nakaira, I'm so happy to see you. Stop talking to me.
That's true.
That's what happens to me. I'm like, Nakaira, I appreciate you. You do
That's true.
too much.
But you guys, behind that is a feeling of appreciation for both of you.
Nakaira, you can catch me outside too, as far as I'm concerned. All you kids can catch these hands. All right? Day 11 of the quarantine.
Is there like a student I can't beat up? Like, I don't feel like, I think these kids are like, but dude, if I catch you, I'm like,
yeah. Xavier Soror is the only one who I think could give me a challenge, but I'll probably knock him out too.
Xavier Soror, probably the only student I would,
yeah.
But yeah, still.
But Xavier, I mean, he has chicken legs. It would be easy for me to just take him down. We love you, Xavier. Please don't take this seriously. You tend to get angry at me for no reason sometimes.
I let you beat me up for free.
I wouldn't do that, but I still love you. I do not believe in violence. There are a lot of people who might be watching this like, who's this guy and how can I complain to his boss? First and foremost, don't call my manager. Don't be that person, okay? Lastly, last part of Big Love, because you are speaking to, or not speaking right now to, but there is a narcissist in our presence. Can you say one thing that you're appreciative of about Mr. Patel?
Oh, Mr. Patel. Sure. Mr. Patel, I appreciate the way that you build relationships with kids. I appreciate that you let yourself, I think, be the real self as a teacher. You're your real self as a teacher, yeah?
No, 100%. I think I worked very hard to do that.
Yeah, and I think that that's really important. So I think it's cool that you're able to do that with kids and like build really authentic connections, or what seem like authentic connections with kids. And I appreciate the way that you've been like trying to navigate and figure out this junior seminar stuff, because it's totally different for you and different from what you've done in the past. And so just
I was on a roll.
Maybe you could have a virtual career fair.
Yeah, true. I'm probably just gonna lay down, to be honest. But
I understand. Yeah.
So those are all my questions. I have a guest joining us right now.
Oh, hello. Hi, Ash. My eyes are itching.
Those are all my questions. Patel, do you have anything that you'd like to grill Ms. Smith on?
Why do you not like mindfulness? So mindfulness is basically the idea that you're super aware of your emotions and your thoughts, and that you are kind of just aware, and you use that to anchor yourself. So I use that a lot. So I don't really care. Like, I just want to know, because I have no expert on SEL stuff.
No, I think it's really good for a lot of people. And I want to be super clear that I'm not saying like, don't do it or don't use it, or I don't believe in it or agree with it. I do. For me personally, I don't know. I haven't connected with it yet, I think.
Okay, so you're saying personally it doesn't work for you. I thought
yes.
It doesn't work.
No, yeah, personally. And I think part of it is that sometimes I can't get past like some of the guided meditations and like the voices. Like when I hear it, I'm like, man, this is so cheesy. And it like makes me cringe a little. And then I'm kind of like, oh, this is weird. And anyway, so for me, I think some of it is that I did just buy like a really fat book on mindfulness. It was kind of an impulse buy. But I'm say that again.
Book on fat.
Sure, yeah. I'm trying to like do some of my own reading so that I can potentially like guide myself through some of this stuff, because I actually do think it would be helpful for me, and even going back to like getting in touch with your senses and letting that be like a grounding experience. I want to try to find ways to make it work for me, but it needs to feel authentic to work. And when I hear the like, close your eyes, take a breath, I'm like, oh.
Let me tell you a story I learned from a mindfulness guided meditation.
Please tell.
So there's this is one of my favorite. This is a good story, guys. So there's like a monk, a Buddhist monk. I don't know why it's so specific on his religion and who he is, but he's running, and there's a tiger chasing this guy. So this guy's running, and he's like, "Don't eat me! Don't eat me! Don't eat me! Don't eat me!" And the tiger's like, "Ah, I want to eat you!" And then what happens is this monk ends up falling and hanging off a branch on a cliff, and the tiger is above him. And then on the branch, there's ants. They're eating at, there's some things, I don't know what kind of insect. They're eating at the branch. And you know what he does? He goes up and he grabs a cherry, a tomato cherry from that branch, and he eats it. You know what I'm saying?
This is from an episode of King of the Hill. This is from an episode of King of the Hill.
Well, it's a definitely a story I heard in God. So you know what the tiger represents? The tiger represents the past, and the ant represents the future or something. But here's the idea: the cherry represents what you can do in the present. You can't control. No, the bottom of the pit is the future. So
okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so
I could fall. Yeah.
And it's like, you know what the moral is? You just gotta enjoy today. You can't control. You're gonna die anyways off this cliff, or this tiger is gonna eat you. You might as well just enjoy this cherry, because that's what we have right now.
That's what you have. Yeah, that makes sense. That's real. And like learning to look at your present. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe we'll do a part 2 and I can talk to you about my changed experiences with mindfulness. But
I'll be here. I'm not doing anything but laying down nowadays.
Yeah, that's cool. Bawany, what do you do? Mindfulness things? Do you do other things? What do you do to like keep yourself in check?
I don't know. It's interesting. No, I don't know. I honestly, my thing is, at this point in my life, considering everything I've been through and how much my life has just been an absolute like learning experience, and being much like Patel, not having supervision. I mean, therapy's been the best thing for me.
Yeah.
But like not having supervision from roughly, whenever I realized my own thoughts or what I was going through, all the way to maybe the age of 26, not having like actual guidance or folks in my life who would tell me that, hey, we love you unconditionally. I think those years have kind of made me a little bit more, made me feel like Teflon, in the sense where like things just bounce off. You'll get a reaction out of me. That I can guarantee. All my students know you'll get a reaction out of me. But like long-term things, usually I'm very considerate of like, not engaging, which has been, if I can be totally honest, which has been terrible in relationships. Like I've had women who I've loved tremendously constantly say like they can't get through, or they can't get a reaction out of me. And my response always is, why is the necessity to try to get a response out of me? That's my thing. Like I always play the long term. Like, so if a student and I engage in an argument, I think very long about like, it's pointless. There's no, like I'm going to need you tomorrow in my classroom and stuff like that. So I don't know if you'd call that mindfulness. I don't know what you might call that, but the main thing that motivates me on a day-to-day is that tomorrow's another day. Like I can't live in a position of writing anybody off, especially if I plan to see them. I also can't get too up about things, because good times are fleeting and tough times are fleeting. It's not the most optimistic approach. I know people are listening to this stuff, but that's kind of the big story. Is that's kind of how we learn to cope, right? Like our experiences get us to positions where we just find ways to exist. That's my answer.
I'm wondering, so like thinking about what Patel was saying about being in the moment, and thinking what you're saying about this sense of like good things will pass and bad things will too. I wonder, Bawany, if you could find yourself appreciating the moment perhaps when you're in it?
I think I do. I think I do a good job about that. I came from a very deeply religious family that used to always pound us with gratitude.
Yeah.
And it was really bad because the gratitude works in a way, like gratitude is not a bad thing, but it works in a way that it can undermine your trauma.
Yeah.
So like if I was going through something, my dad would, I love him and I don't want to talk about my dad because I get super emotional about how much I love him. But his response was because of his upbringing and having, a seventh grade education and just being grinding his whole life.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Again, I really love my dad and the things he's been through, but his default response was to be like, well, son, at least we have food on our plate,
Right.
which when you're younger, that stuff absolutely makes sense. Like, okay, things can be worse, but the older I get, I kind of do get in this point where I am grateful for the moment, but like, I am still, like many of the adults the students will encounter at Clemente, walking around deeply heartbroken about different things in life. Right. I think that's kind of why so many of us gravitate to teaching. The toughest thing about teaching is I see my kids that I love tremendously make the same mistakes I make, and I can't stop them most of the time. And many of us who teach, we're deeply broken people in many respects. And we teach because genuinely we're trying to be the people that we needed when we were younger, right? Like one thing I love about Clemente tremendously is that I walk the hallways and I like walk past like Monica's room and I'll say, Monica or Miss Ibarra is the educator I needed when I was younger. Miss Smith is a counselor I needed when I was younger. Mr. Patel is somewhat the teacher I needed when I was younger.
Bro, if oBawany saw this brown teacher, I know, like, me and oBawany have like a telepathic connection just being brown. I know he would be like, oh God, a brown teacher, finally. Like, I don't have to be a doctor.
Yeah. I mean, that's how we process, right? Like I'm grateful for what I have, but I'm also, it is very hard some mornings to wake up and not be like, man, like this, like deeply lamenting over what could have been. One thing that's been really personal for me in these last 2 days, and I do want to sit down and write about it, is, my high school experience was absolute trash. Like I hated it. I left Chicago public schools to go to a suburban school. The majority of students were white, and I very much had my own conflictions with identity and who I wanted to be, so much so that it had me hating, who I was, a Pakistani Muslim kid with visibly Pakistani Muslim parents, right? And I think about like, it's heartbreaking because I never really enjoyed high school. My senior year, and I know a lot of people think like this might be good, but I want you to know that high school is a once in a lifetime experience. Every moment, right? Like is a once in a while experience. You won't have that back. Right. For me in high school, I had early dismissal and late arrival because I just wanted to get the hell out of there my senior year.
Same senior year, we got both.
I just wanted to get the hell out of there. Like if you ask me today how many friends I have from high school, I only have one, and he lives in Dallas, and we really talk very seldom, but we do love each other. And like that type of loneliness that was in high school is the type of loneliness I can't describe. And I'm feeling that for a lot of my kids right now, right? Like, you had to witness a strike, which I have no regrets about. Like, but I do regret that my kids missed out. My senior football players missed out on senior night, which hurts and which is indicative of a terrible system we live in, where kids are always the ones penalized when adults are having it out, whether we know it's for the good or bad. And now I'm feeling for my like senior girls team, but I'm also feeling for like DJ right now, who senior year meant a lot to them, right? And it's hurting right now. And I'm feeling it for Devontae, and I'm feeling it for Alex, and I'm feeling it for everybody. School, like we want to fight each other when we're inside of school, but like we really miss the kids. And it kind of tears at me because I know how heartbroken I am about not feeling loved in high school. And I know at the same time, I don't get to have a chance in any which way to impact a young person in high school, something that I desperately needed when I was younger. someone to just say, hey, it's going to be okay, or hey, I love you, or hey, you're enough. You know, I didn't have those moments, sadly.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out Devontae. I love you, brother. I love
You
you.
need to be doing your online work too, sir.
Oh, he will.
Please, Devontae, please.
Email me.
Not only English 4, but the other course. Please get that done, buddy.
I got it.
Love you too.
That's my homie.
Yeah, but and sorry, like the tables turned for a second, and I was waiting for you to ask a question. Okay, Teresa, we get it. You want to talk to Jack? She'll call you shortly. But Jack, thank you for your time. We really appreciate you.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Anytime. You're more than welcome to come back. We've got a second show coming up in probably like 15 minutes.
Oh, nice.
And so Peso and I got to recover, but we really appreciate you. And thank you. And Peso, you wanna lead us out? Anything you want to say?
Love you, Jack. Goodbye.
Nice. Thank you.
Appreciate you, Jack.
Bye. Happy Friday.
Bye. And hopefully for everybody else, we will see you on the second episode today. So talk to you soon.
Later. How do I get out of here?
Please keep that part in. Please let that be like something with our video. Like, you know, whenever anything starts, like, how do I get out of here?
Remove you from the room, okay? Just
okay.
bye.
All right, Peso, I'll see you in a little bit, homie.